Sanji Chudan Soji Chanam Chanjo Bardo Dani Jason Ji Dagi Jinson Jibi Senam Jin Jolam Penjir Sanjin Jombaraju Sanji Chudan Soji Chanam Chanjo Bardo Dani Jason Jin Dagi Jinson Jibi Senam Ji Jolam Penjir Sanjin Jombaraju Sanji Chudan Soji Chanam Chanjo Bardo Dani Jason Jin Dagi Jinson Jibi Senam Ji Jolam Penjir Sanjin Jombaraju Semjin Tamji Devadan Devi Judan Dembara Churji Donghaladan Donghaji Judan Tawara Churji Donghameben Deva Tambada Mendrawara Churji Nire Jadan Nidan Tave Tanyam Chembola Nimbara Churanji Semjen Tamjen Devada Devin Judan Dembara Churji Dongadan Dongaji Judan Tawara Churji Dongamebe Deva Dambada Mendrawara Churji Nire Chada Nidan Tave Tanyam Chembola Nebara Joraji Semjen Tamjen Devadan Deve Judan Dembara Jorji Dongadan Dongaji Judan Tawara Jorji Dongamebe Tamba Damendra Churji Nire Chada Nidan Tave Tanyam Chembola Nebara Churji. Page number 12. 12. 1 to 12. Chan Sawadan Jujin Shabadan Jiso Yiran Gojin Sawai Gewa Jungzin Dagi Jizamba Tamjin Dagi Kanjo Jemburan. Page number 10. Second line. Sajim Puju Chujim Medon Cham Jira Linji Nide Jembandi Sanje Shindo Midem Puai Druga Namda Shinda Chembora Om Mendala Punzra Menga Samund Savarana Samaye Ahung. 21. Semje namje sambha Goye Jeda Jedara Chechon Tumon Tebai Chuje Kordo Gordo So Baldan zarar marın boyu da geçiyor ben de yana karın çömbe konu cezonda 고성도 정으로 전도 오면 주제 이제 파란에 좀 산지 근정원 나섬 저건 전도 배자회담에 샬라 장사로 당근도 제자절에서로 전제매도도 제공 좀 봤을 때는 뭐다 그러지 배 차지자 배샬라 장사로 저진지마게 건다가라 도산지제보다 좀 도제진진로 나서 제레즈가 장사로 하다나면 제변제 자제 배만다도 대 pomba건는 존재마 존마염나 장사로 엄마나에게 나노다는 쟁게 좀다다메게 남다로가 근제라기 지혜점버 탐지에게도 다게 죄된도 So now we are on the verse number 6. Right? So it says that Kangla Dagi Pen Tapi Revachewa Kanshi Ki Shindu Mirik Nu She Nam Shenyan Tambar Tawar Sho. Even if someone that I benefited and had great hope in that person gravely mistreat and causes harm to me, may I view him as a sublime teacher. So now this verse explains a particular perspective where generally when we do good to someone, then we expect them to return in similar action or behavior. So that is in general world, how to say, worldly aspect or terms. So that is how one expects. When you do something for somebody good, then you expect in return the same. So that is how normally is. But in such, then when they respond in not that kind of a manner, then we get really disappointed and frustrated and hurt, etc. But the great master here, he says that this is a special opportunity to further cultivate your bodhicitta and your progressive attitude. So here the author or the great master Langri, so he says that it is those who normally are close to us can somehow affect us the most. Supposing if somebody who you don't know, somebody who you don't have much connection with, does something to you to hurt you, of course you get upset, but then not much. There's not much beyond that. You But somebody who you care a lot, who you have done a lot, but in return hurts you, then you get very hurt. You get very hurt, you get very upset, and like this. So now, so here it says, why is that? That is because we have so much attachment. We have so much attachment and strings attached to this. You do something for somebody, and then you expect in return, that person would do something for you or for something. So when you have like that strings attached to it, then it is very painful, because not every individual is the same. We really don't know whether they would be able to, repay, whether they would repay. We don't know. So that way, when you attach strings that way, then it is very hurtful. And so even in normal terms, as a practitioner, then it says one mustn't have any strings attached to it, because that is not real bodhicitta. Bodhicitta is completely completely surrendering your body, speech, and mind for the benefit of beings. So that is why you want to attain enlightenment. So that way, then there's no strings attached to that. We know that because so many strings are attached, which comes with this strong grasping onto the I, and through this I, and then we have mind, then we have you, then those who you appreciate, then they are in your favor. Those who don't, to whom you don't appreciate, you don't like, then there are, that is the ones you don't like. So that way, all this dislikes, your side, their side, all these confusions arise. So as a practitioner, then we understand this, and when we understand that, then we try to eliminate the root cause of all that confusion, and that is the attachment. That is the ignorance. So ignorance of this. So that is why here it says that. So here we train ourselves to learn forgiveness and cultivate the act of benefiting others without any expectation in return, which diminishes the great act of benefiting others. With the attachment, supposing you do an act of generosity, that is a great act. That is something wonderful. But when you do it with an attachment, then it diminishes that great act of generosity. Because then there's so much expectation out of that, and when that doesn't happen, then anger or some sort of emotions arise. Then that corrupts your this great wonderful act of compassion or loving kindness, etc. So that way. So So here it says that usually when someone who you don't like, or someone who you don't know hurt you, you will not be so upset. But someone who you are close to, or when they act in such a way, then you will be very upset. So someone who you have great sense of confidence or trust, that person, that such a person will, you have a confidence that such a person will come forth to your help, or during your difficult times. And when that doesn't happen, then you have so much hurt and like this. So in such a case, you should see this person as a great teacher, it says, because your act of generosity with such attachment is really not a genuine act of generosity. It is it is like a give and take. So when it's give and take, it's like a business, right? I do something for you, in return I will my profit. So that is not genuine, generosity or genuine loving kindness. And that is more like a business. That is more like give and take. So it corrupts the genuineness, the genuine act of loving kindness, compassion, the bodhicitta. So therefore, like the great master have said that if someone whom you cherish as dearly as your own child takes you for an enemy or hurts you, then like a mother whose child is sick, to love that person even more is the practice of a bodhisattva. So supposing like a child, when a child is sick, a mother caring for her sick child, so when she cares for the child because of sickness, will not like the mothers, like trying to feed the child, trying to give the medicine. The child will not like, will repel to all that, and create a fuss and all that. So when the child does such a thing, the mother will not get upset, because mother knows that the child is going through a difficult time. So when it's going through that kind of a difficult time, the mother develops even more kindness, even more love towards the child, seeing that the child is going through such difficult times, and then through skillful means will try to overcome this difficulty. So the mother, through that, the mother will even develop more loving kindness, more compassion, more that way. So it says here, that so in the same way, when a person to whom one has really cared and looked after does such, in return hurts, then one must see that this person, through ignorance, not able to see the reality, is doing that. Because of the person's ignorance, ego, jealousy, whatever, then not able to see the reality or the truth, is taking such measures, and that way, it is hurting the person itself. It is like self-hammering. It's hurting the person itself. So there is no space for one to develop anger towards such person. There's no space for one to develop any ill feeling towards such person. In fact, one must develop even more kindness, even more compassion, even more care for such people. So it says, this is in the Jalsilani, so the Bodhisattvas practice the 37 practices of a Bodhisattva by Jalse Togme, one of the great Bodhisattva masters. So his teaching, he says that. And many masters have said that. And here also is the same. So it says again in this practice also. Kaala dagi pen tabi rewachewa kanshiki shintu mirin nojena shenyen tamba dawarsha. So even if someone that I benefit and had great hope in that person gravely mistreat and cause harm to me, may I view him or her as a sublime teacher. So we always get hurt because of that. We do things for people, but we always have strings attached to that. So that is the less we can do that, the more at peace we will be. The more genuine our act will be. So whatever you do, if you do it with a genuine intention, without any strings attached to that, then even if that other person appreciates or doesn't appreciate, you are fine with that. And then you really start to rejoice in your whatever you do. You will really appreciate and rejoice. It will give you a deep sense of happiness, for yourself when you are able to do that. But when you do things and then have lots of strings attached to that, always the result is not how you wish. And when that happens, then lots of lots of difficulties arise. So that is why here. And then simple practices like we do offering of the water to the altar in the morning, every morning. Why do we do that? That is also a practice of this. Water is one of the most precious. Well, it is the most precious source for our life. Scientists trying to find water on in the moon, in the Mars, and all that. They're doing so much, spending so much, because that is the sign of life. So water is the most precious for life. Yet we don't have so much attachment to water. So if we have to offer, a bowl of forget gold. Even if you have to offer a bowl of, say, rice, every morning to the altar, you would feel, people think, is this really worth doing it? Because that rice I could eat, I could give somebody, and other people many things like that. I could give it to people who don't have food. Why do I offer like that? Why do I waste like this? They think like that. So people have this kind of a thought. It is good, giving to others and all that is good. It is not that that is not good or that is not worth. But here, all that is the attachment. Attachment creates all problem. The afflictive emotions like attachment, anger, jealousy. So all these are the main cause of all problems. So, in order to overcome such like attachment or whatever, and then the water is such a precious, precious thing. Yet we don't have so much attachment to that. So when we offer that water with genuineness, somehow we are offering the most precious, yet that attachment is not there. So in the afternoon when you throw water, you will not feel attached to that. When you offer in the morning, you don't have much attachment to that. So that is so that is why we make such offering to the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, because that is of great accumulation of merit. When we do other things, we do a great accumulation of merit, but with that, when we contaminate with our attachment, then that act of the great act of meritorious act becomes contaminated with our these limitations. So that is why we do like water, whatever. That is why we do the act of doing like offering or anything like that also, because to reduce our attachment. If it is Buddha said, that if you don't have so much attachment to anything, and then you can, you can have that. Buddha did not become, a monk with a begging bowl, taking meal from, begging. Not because he couldn't afford food, not because he didn't have food, not because he had to become a beggar. So people normally take it in a literal sense, and they think monks should be beggar, Buddha should be beggar. If you are not a beggar, then you are not a monk. So that is not what it means. What it means is the attachment. So attached to material, or so when you are attached to it, then that attachment contaminates our process, our process or our path. So therefore, if one is able to reduce and eliminate the attachment and all other afflictive emotions, then they are not the main problem. If you are able to do that. So if you don't have so much attachment, or if you don't have attachment, Buddha said you can have anything. You can wear a robe of gold. If you don't have attachment to gold. If you don't have attachment to that wealth. But because we have attachment to all that, then we need to practice contentment. We need to practice all that. To overcome that. So like that. So it is not the gold that is the problem. It is the attachment that is the problem. It is not supposing something creates, makes you angry. It's not that thing which makes you angry is the problem. It's the anger itself which is the problem. So if you can tackle the anger, that other side which angers you automatically is pacified. So that is how here also. So it says so this attachment. So the strings attached to things. So when it is not genuine, when it's not one way, then it creates so much confusion. So therefore, even if anybody who one has cared so much hurts one, then one must learn to not have ill feelings, and rather one must look at such a person as one's spiritual master. So this now, of course, applies to everything, as I said. So basically, it means whatever you do it with genuineness. Do it open-hearted. Don't have any strings attached to that. As long as you have strings attached to that, then you're contaminating your act of whatever your profound act, your precious act. But whatever you do, even it might be a small thing. If you do it with genuineness, then that is the most profound act. It doesn't have to be a big thing. Even a small thing, if it's done with a genuine 100%, with no attachment to it, then that is the most profound act. Whereas even if you do the greatest thing, but with lots of attachment, that is contaminated. So it is not right. So the sixth stanza says that we must practice as a practitioner of the mind training. We must train our mind. So here, mind training means we have to train our mind. We have to, work with the mind. So here we must work with our mind to overcome such habit. Because these are habits, no matter what you do, it is always like that. We see, we do something, we are always doing for something or the other, or we expecting. Even we might not, consciously expect, and you might think, I'm just doing. But later, if that thing hurts you or something happens, there's always something attached there. So we must train ourselves. We must, work with ourselves to have that kind of detachment from such attachments. So that is, as a mind practitioner, the mind training practitioner, then these things are, practices where one has to be mindful of. So whatever you do, whether you are doing your work in your office, whether you are doing your, practice in the Dhamma center, whatever. So we must always do it with 100%, with genuineness, with 100%, and that's it. Then as long as you do that, every act is a noble act. Every act is an act of Dharma. Because Dharma, there's no, everything is Dharma. As we know, we are Mahamudra practitioners. Everything is Mahamudra. So everything is a practice. So if you know how to turn, whatever you do into a profound, profound way, then that is Dharma. Dharma is everything. So therefore, even if we, eat, if we eat with lots of attachments, with lots of things, then it is a problem. That strong attachment to that food, can lead you to, that can become the source to the next problem of not being able to have that again. So that is a suffering. So that way, or not able to share with others. There is a saying, that if you do like this too much, the food will give you stomach ache. So there's a saying like that. So, and that is why. But if you eat with a total, so mindfulness is that. When mindfulness, awareness, when you eat, means you eat as it is. Not with so much confusion. And when you are able to do that, that is meditation. Eating meditation. So everything becomes profound when you are able to do that. Let go of such attachments and confusion. So here, this is the practice of that. Now, not the seventh. It says that Dorna Mutang and Jupai Pende Man Kunambul Mai Nutang Dumalkun Sanwe Dal Lempersho. So here the seventh practice now is the practice of the Tonglen, or the practice of give and take, or exchanging oneself with other. So that kind of practice. So this is a very profound practice, practiced by many practitioners. So it says Dharma in brief. Now all that put together till now, whatever we discussed through. So all that, if one puts together, then it boils down to this practice. It says, and the practice is whether it is directly. So directly means helping directly, or putting others before oneself directly, or exchanging oneself to other indirectly. So that way, directly, or Ju means by doing such practice of meditation, thought, in your mind, doing practice of giving and taking, such practices. So it says, always, whether it is through the three doors, mentally, verbally and physically, always directing towards benefiting others, putting others, the well-being of others first. And then able to take upon oneself the shortcomings, the difficulties, the sufferings of others. So and then that also, it says, taking upon oneself with secretly. So here, English. In short, it says, whether it be directly or indirectly, offer benefits and happiness to all mother sentient beings, and may I, in return, discreetly receive all harm and sufferings of mother sentient beings. So that is the practice. So here, so here now, why it says secretly? Secretly means so not going around advertising what you are doing. I'm doing the practice of Tonglen, I do the practice of putting others before me, well-being of others before myself. So like this, if you advertise around, say things around, then what happens is it corrupts you again, because then number one, we say the worldly dharma. Worldly dharma is looking for one's own benefit, fame, wealth, etc. So these things, so it can corrupt you by such. And also, when one does such practices, then practice of well-being of others before oneself, automatically you will be appreciated by people. It is always, it is a natural thing, that when you start to care for others, when you start to do things for others, and then you will be like the gem of the society. And when that happens, then naturally, everybody will praise you, everybody will be, good to you and others. So when that happens, then, there is a danger of one getting carried away, and then, and obstacles happening to your such practice. So it says in that way, then secretly means that, so one does such practice secretly, quietly, once, I was very fortunate to be with my guru, Vajradhara, just sitting near a lake, and there was a duck, that was floating around so in the lake, and it looked very peaceful, and was that way. So I was thinking, the duck is relaxing and nicely. Then my guru pointed at the duck and told me, can you see the duck? So I said, yeah. So he said, what do you think is he doing? So I said, he's relaxing and like that. So he said, yes. So he looks like that, but underneath, if you see it, working very hard with its two legs, to float, and then working very hard. But from outside, it looks very calm and sitting like that. So one must always be that way, in life. He said, that one must work very hard to benefit others. Whatever one is supposed to do that way. Work very hard, do diligently, sincerely. Work hard all the time. But no need to, advertise. No need to be, flashy. You should be as, subdued as possible. Otherwise, first of all, even in terms of worldly your job will not be done because there will be so many obstacles then, and you cannot do it. And from Dhamma point, of course, as it says here, as a Dhamma practitioner, whatever we do should be done 100% without any, such expectations. So we shouldn't be, so flashy, and we shouldn't be so, loud about it. So that was a very precious teaching, that I received. So it's like that. So whatever we do, we should do it with genuineness, with hard working, with sincerity, but we should do it in such a way that it is not loud, it is not flashy, we should be like anyone around us, look like anyone around us, able to mix with anybody around us, yet, we work hard, to benefit others, so that we benefit ourselves, so like that. Like there's another, like the Sangjin Nyingpa Rinpoche, the previous Sangjin Nyingpa Rinpoche, Guru Vajradhara keeps saying, that because when he was small, I think Sangjin Nyingpa Rinpoche, the previous one was, old, and they used to look after, Guru Vajradhara, Taisiddhapa, and they lived in one, I think during that time when they just came from Tibet, so life was difficult, so they didn't have place to stay, so many people living in one room like this, so that way. So he was, Guru was in one corner, I think, sleeping, and then Sangjin Nyingpa Rinpoche, he was old that time, so he used to sleep in another corner like that, then all the attendants sleeping around, and all the other monks sleeping like that. So they always found, that Sangjin Nyingpa Rinpoche, he would be like normal, with everybody and talking, and that daytime, and then like this. But in the night, Guru used to see him, that he's meditating and practicing all night, that he used to see. So like that, he used to practice, and work so hard, yet not loud, not act like he's such a great master, not act like he's doing such a great practice like that. They used to be very, how do you say, very down to earth, very like that. So like that. So one should do this. As a practitioner, one must practice that way. It says so. So now here, so here now it says in this practice of Tonglen, so same way, so when we, that is why it says secretly means that, so secretly means in order to not corrupt your practice, in order to not, in order to avoid obstacles, so one needs to be secret about some practice. And so with that, then practice of Tonglen. For Tonglen is like, when you are doing practice. So supposing, as I said, directly is when somebody is in need of something, you're directly helping. Then if someone, so that is directly, of course, we all understand what is directly. Then if not directly, then like Tonglen practice is by meditation. How you do is genuinely developing, the sense of well-being for others, genuinely developing loving kindness, compassion for others, and through that, and then realizing or recognizing that all this, whether it's happiness or whether it is suffering, comes about with one's action. That is the karma. So therefore, whatever one's positive karma is, and then one genuinely dedicates that to others, who have difficulties. And those who have difficulties, they experience such because of their karma that they created. So genuinely wishing that made their such karma, you are able to absorb it, and you are able to free them from such karma. So like that. So when you do meditation and that, and then also like sickness. If somebody is sick, you can do such practice. That may your well-being, your good health, everything. So may that, be absorbed by the sick person, and may the sick person's sickness and the negative karma through which such sickness and suffering is experienced, may all that ripen upon oneself and take upon oneself, and so like this. This kind of a practice. Now, when you do that kind of meditation practice, then there are visualizations. For example, you visualize that when you breathe out, there's a white light. That comes out from you, and with the white light represents all your positive karma, all your merit and all that, so through that good health, good whatever, all positivity, so that goes out, and then it dissolves into the other beings, whoever have problems. And then through that they are able to absorb that, they are able to benefit out of that. And then from there, then you visualize like a smoky light, a smoky gray light that comes out and enters into you and absorbs into you. And this light represents their negative karma, their suffering, their difficulties, and that everything comes into you. As you breathe in, you visualize that coming in and then absorbs into you and dissolves into you, and you're able to take that, and they are freed from such sufferings and negativity. So that way, so again and again you do this kind of a visualization and this kind of practice. So that is called Tonglen practice, give and take, practice, and it is a very beneficial practice. Now, sometimes you might think this is just, like visualization. This is just thinking. How does it really help? So how it really helps. Because many people I know who have done such practice are able to really help. And then not only help the other person, but also help themselves. Because as we say, it is this attachment, strong grasping onto the self. So this is the creator of all problems. So when you are able to let go of this, this self, the strong attachment to the self, when you are able to give others your happiness and take the sufferings of others onto oneself is what? That is letting, that is working with this strong attachment to this I. Always worried about this I. As I told you yesterday, this target of this I. So you are diminishing the target of this, I. So you're making the I smaller by doing such practice. And when that happens naturally, you yourself is less susceptible to harm, less susceptible to, obstacles because of that, because of such, because as I say, everything is one's mind perceives everything, whether it is suffering, whether it is, happiness, everything is the state of the mind. So in the mind, if it's positive, then, one experiences positivity around. If it's negative mind, then it experiences negativity, no matter what the situation is. So through such practice, what happens is your mind becomes positive. Your mind becomes, and through that positivity of the mind, then it experiences positive all the time. And then it's able to, overcome difficulties and shortcomings. So like that, so that way it helps oneself through such practice. And others also, of course, it can help because. Yes, when we are dualistic, then there's a distance between you and me. But ultimately, as we know, our essence is Buddha. So when our essence is Buddha, Buddha is beyond limitation. Buddha is beyond relativity. Buddha is beyond dualism. So in that sense, ultimately, in the ultimate reality, there is no you and me. It is all oneness. There's no difference between you and me. There's my Buddha nature and your Buddha nature is one. Buddha and you is one. There's no this separation. So in that sense, when you do such practice, then it really can help. It really can benefit others that way. Because of the state of the ultimate the nature. So like that. So such practices are not meaningless, or it is not just a game. It is not just imagination. It is genuinely beneficial. It is genuinely beneficial for others. It is genuinely beneficial for oneself. So if you do such practice, it will really help. It will help yourself. It will help others, and it is very effective. So doing practices like Tonglen is very profound. So as I said, then we just we can do this anytime. When we breathe out, think all our good health, all our good merit, all our good karma you give to all those suffering and that. Then if you have particular in your mind, then doing to that. Then their sufferings, their negative karma, their all that you take upon yourself. And it dissolves into yourself, and then you rejoice in this act of such practice, and doing like this again and again. So you can do this, and whenever you have something nice happen to you, you rejoice, and immediately you can think, may all this also experience, may all the beings also experience this, and when something bad happens to you, immediately you can think, may everybody's such suffering and difficulties ripen upon myself, like that. So you can see, the practitioners, when they get sick, they are like great masters. They are very peaceful. They are very like I remember, one of my masters. He was a great master, very high, realization. He was very ill, but then not even for a day I've seen him complaining or having difficulties, and he was in great pain, but then that way, he always used to practice. I know he practices like that. He never told me, that he's doing such practice and this and that. But then, such beings, that they, if the doctor asks, you have any pain, he would say no. If the doctor says, you need anything, he would say no, I'm good, I'm happy, and always laughing, always that way. But doctor tells us it's impossible, because the doctor knows scientifically the things that he's going through, the things he's experiencing, it's very painful, it's very difficult, one cannot bear, but then they are able to absorb that, so that they don't trouble others, and they're doing such practice like that, so they are able to do like that. Whereas on the other hand, you also see people who get sick, and then they say, why this is happening to me? Why me? So why me means why not others? So simply, so not able to understand, that one experiences one's own doing. So all this is a ripening of one's past karma. So as a practitioner, if you think that way, then you are not so afraid also, because ripening means what? It is ripening. It is getting done with. So sometimes when hard things happen, if you think in a positive way as a practitioner, it is like getting rid of it. You are not leaving it left over for future or next life. So you are ripening it right now. So as a practitioner, you become strong. You even, not only that, you take upon everybody's such karma, and since your karma is ripening right now, so you take all their negative karma upon yourself and may it ripen on yourself. So such practice they do. And then so that others are freed from such sufferings and negative karma. So like that. And when you do that, then they rejoice in such practice, Tonglen. When you rejoice in such practice, your state of mind is positive. And when your state of mind is positive, then then suffering doesn't exist, because the suffering is what? It is a state of mind. So when your mind is positive, then the situation may be suffering, but from suffering it becomes a state of practice, state of rejoicing. So that way it cannot harm you, it cannot pull you down. So like that. Whereas on the other side, if you don't have that kind of a state of mind, and then if you think, why me, why happened to me, why not others are the same, I did so many things good and still happening like this, that is not able to understand, because it's not, because you did good things doesn't mean it's happening to you, these things. We live many lifetimes, so in lifetime we create so many karma, so some karma that create is ripening now, some karma will ripen in the future, some karma have ripened in the past, so right now the karma which is ripening, we are experiencing that, so the good work that we have done, that karma will ripen in the future again, or may ripen in this life also, we don't know, but that will ripen. So it is obvious, so that is cause and condition, so when you create a cause and condition, you will experience the result, there's no way that you will not experience, it will not disappear somewhere, in the same way, nothing appears or happens without cause and condition, so with that sense, then whatever you do, if you do good work, good things will happen, you will experience that sooner or later, so that way there's no need to be upset, or there's no need to have such doubts and all that. So, so this is such a practice, practice of the Tonglen practice. So here, so it says, so all the beginning, whatever we went through, so these practices we should do, and at the end, then it boils down to this, the practice itself. So if you're not able to do this, then how will you be able to do the rest of the above? So above becomes a mere theory. So if you are able to really do this, then the above all becomes a practice. It says that is why it says Donna, in brief. And so this is the now. Teda, now the eighth phrase. So like the great master Shanti Deva, he also says here, that Kanji Dada Jenamni, one who wishes to liberate oneself and others, then the most profound practice is the practice of exchanging oneself with others. So that is the most profound practice, he says. So that is. And then also he says, that Dade Jinji Dungalta, Yanda Jawal Majina, Sangji Nini Midubjing, Korwa Nayan Devame. So he is saying that if one is not able to direct the mind to exchange one's well-being with the others, or if one is not able to develop such practice of the sense of well-being for others, then he says forget about enlightenment. Enlightenment, of course, is bodhicitta, is to liberate all beings, for the benefit of all beings, to liberate all limitless beings. So that is the bodhicitta. So forget about enlightenment, he says. Even in the samsara also you will not find peace. So forget about liberation he's talking about. So that's true. And so when we have a strong self attachment and no sense of well-being for others, then even in the samsara you will not find peace. You have always problem with everybody around you. You're always lacking, never satisfied, never happy, that. So in samsara also there's no peace. So forget about enlightenment. So therefore it says, as a practitioner working towards enlightenment, then practice such as well-being of others before oneself, the practice of the tonglen, practice of exchanging oneself with others. So such practices are very important, profound practices. Now the final, the 8th stanza, it says, Teda kunjang chu jeji tobe chime mabashing chu kun jumar shibelu sheme chingwa le trosho. So now, as I said, by all these aspirations remaining undefiled by the 8 worldly concerns, and by recognizing all phenomena as illusion, may I, without clinging and attachment, be liberated from the attachment of bondage. So, as I said, the last 2 lines is ultimate bodhicitta, and so here the first 2 lines emphasize on the importance of your motivation. When you engage in such practices, the possibility, as I said that time, is one can get deviated from one's such noble practice by staining it with worldly dharma. So worldly dharma is like wishing for pleasure, wishing for pain, wishing to be how to say, wishing for gain, wishing for praises. So these things, so these are worldly dharma, because that is just the samsaric pleasures, and also samsaric shortcomings, like pain, like fear from slander, fear from pain, fear from losses. Those are also worldly dharma, because as we saw that, so as a practitioner, we should be able to overcome those fear, because those fear bind us to attachment, to self. These fears arise from the attachment to self. So because of attachment to self, strong clinging to oneself, then these arise. So if one is able to let go of these things, whether it's praise or whether it's slander, whether it's gain or whether it's loss, whether it's fame or whether it's defame. So if one is able to let go of these, and then automatically one's strong self-clinging is diminished. And when that happens, then automatically one experiences greater peace, greater happiness that way. And so that is why it says, that one must be mindful and aware all the time that your practice, such practices are free from stains of the worldly dharma, such stains. And by all of these, aspiration means the above practices remaining undefiled by the 8 worldly concerns. So that is what it means. So being mindful all the time, and then doing it for the benefit of others, genuinely, without any strings attached to it. And then it says, the next it says, Chukun Jumarchibi. Now, and by recognizing all phenomena as illusion, may I, without clinging and attachment, be liberated from the bondage. So, here, as I said, the relative bodhicitta is, it's a concept, is under the, it is still dualistic. So like we saw, we are giving to somebody, by you, you here giving somebody there, doing the act of tongue and giving, so it is still, relative. So we are working with this kind of a method, so relative. But we do that, and then gradually through this kind of a practice, then we diminish this self-clinging of, this self-I, and then this I creates. When there is a strong I, then this I creates all other things, like attachment and, greed and, so etc., ego and all that. So through these previous practices, what happens is the I is diminished. We are working with the I. And gradually through that, and then, we cultivate the next, the practice, which is the practice of understanding emptiness, realization of the emptiness. Emptiness is free from the, here it says the three, what did it say? May I, without clinging and attachment, liberated from the bondage, from the 3 spheres, they say, korsum mimikpa. So the 3, spheres, like the one doing the action itself, and this, to whom one is doing. So these 3, it is an illusion also, because if one examines carefully, as we saw yesterday, this I itself, it really doesn't, you cannot find, it is empty of such a, independent, independent, solid nature. One cannot find if you really examine. So in the same way, whatever you look around you, everything is empty by such, solid identity, independent reality. So that is, in other words, everything is interdependent nature. Everything is interdependent. So it is a mere, interdependent, and that itself is the emptiness. So here it says that through this kind of understanding, and then one sees everything as a mere illusion. Just now, because of lack of understanding of this, we really think, you are there. I really think I'm here. So you can hurt me. I get hurt. And things are here. So I am attached to these things. I need these things and all that. But in reality, it is beyond such a thing. It is empty of such character. So therefore, there is nobody here to be hurt. There is nobody hurting you. So in reality, it is beyond such a thing. As long as we are, with the limitation of getting, caught in this reality, then you can get hurt. But when you are free from that kind of a, illusion of, you being here, someone can hurt you from there, then there's no hurt. Because all this is like an illusion. It's not real. It's like so like that it says. So that is the understanding of the, the nature of emptiness, the wisdom of emptiness. So that is the true state of everything. So in that state, then everything is perfect at all times. There's no bad, there's no good. There's no, less, there's no more. There's no samsara, there's no liberation. There's no birth, there's no death. That is the ultimate reality of everything. That is the perfect state of everything. That is enlightenment. But that one can describe, one can, study, and one can do all that. But one can only experience that genuinely when one develops insight into the emptiness genuinely. So how do we do that? Through meditation. First working relatively, and then gradually, through such practice. Always understanding, first analytically understanding, and through understanding, then putting into meditation practice. And seeing things as a mere, illusion. So that acting. So this kind of a practice. So what happens is then when one really recognizes that or experiences or realizes that, and then again one might think, that then you become different. You start acting different, or you become like a zombie. So it's not like that. It's like an example. Let's say, it is like a small child. Plays with its toys. So a small child playing with a toy. So it has, let's say, it plays with its horse, it plays with its car, with these toys, small toys. So for the child, this toy is real. He thinks this toy is a real car. It's a real horse. So it has lots of attachment to that. And then it has a lot of. So if you take away that, the child will be really upset. And then it has so much attachment to that, because for the child, in its mind or in its illusion, it is real. But as a grown-up, when you look at that, it's not real. It is just a toy. So you don't stop seeing it as a car or whatever, but you understand it is not real. It is a mere illusion that the child is going through. But it is not real. So for you, you don't have attachment to that anymore. If somebody takes away that toy from you, you don't have so much grudge or so much attachment to that, because that is not real. So like that. So when you understand, everything around you is like that. It is a mere illusion. There's no reality in anything. It is just a mere perception. So when you understand that, then it's like that. So you don't get affected by it so much. You overcome. Like that. So yet you will be able to perform, or you will be able to very much, live in that as it is. Like Buddha. Buddha had meals. Buddha slept. Buddha walked. Buddha woke up. He did all that. Yet he wasn't in the illusion of all this as a reality. Yet he was very much in that. So like that. So because at the end of the day, relative manifestation also appear because of emptiness, because of the ultimate emptiness. Because it is emptiness, then relative can manifest. Because it is relative, emptiness is emptiness is the ultimate. If there was no emptiness, how can relative appear? It should always be the same all the time. But everything can manifest in many ways. You see me in one way, each of you will perceive me in a different way. I think I am one person here, but you will see me as one way you look at it. You will see me as one way you look. So, there are how many of us here? 12 people here. 12 people will have 12 perspectives of me. So that very shows that, there is no solid identity as me here. It is just the one perceiving, how it is. So, and it is possible because of emptiness, nature. Because of the nature of emptiness, this is possible. So this relative, appearance or relative perspective is possible because of the very state of emptiness. And emptiness is, the nature is emptiness because of relative. Because it is relative, you can see. There's no, reality in that. It is just a relative perspective. So emptiness is that. So therefore, emptiness doesn't mean nothing. Emptiness means this. It is and there is no fixed one identity or one thing. It is empty of such a character of oneness. It is beyond such a thing. It is beyond these kind of concepts or dualism and that. So here, then that is, so this is the last Chugun Jumar. So by understanding that first, through contemplative meditation, and then by resting in that, through meditation, then may I, without clinging and attachment, be liberated from the this attachment or the bondage. So that is the ultimate bodhicitta practice. So resting in that very very state of oneness, or very state of non-dual meditation. So that is the meditation of the ultimate bodhicitta. So here, as I say, we have to understand that, we have to practice that. How we practice is by knowing that whatever appear is just a mere appearance. It is a relative appearance, but the reality ultimately is the emptiness. Nature of everything is emptiness. So we must understand that. So emptiness, as I have explained to you, it is not nihilist. It's not nothingness. It is. So by understanding, then we perceive things, see things like that. So then, if we are able to develop this kind of understanding outlook, then we become very positive in everything. We become very how do you say, a large-hearted person. Not very narrow-minded, not very easy to get hurt, not very sensitive. So we will not become like that. We will not become very sensitive. We will become a balanced person. So first we work with that way, and then we work with the the relative bodhicitta very diligently, and then gradually then we it will develop into the ultimate bodhicitta. So that is the practice of the eight verses of the mind training by Geshe Langri Thangpa. Okay, so that is the. So now with this, we conclude this text. And then there is another thing that I would like to share with you, which is very profound advice. This is the mind advice, or the instruction, mind instruction, which was given to me by, as I said, my very precious, one of my very precious teachers. So I try to remember these things in my day-to-day life, and I thought it would be very beneficial for you also, to keep these in mind. So of course this has no translation. So I didn't give you because it doesn't have any. It's just Tibetan. It's just in my everyday practice text. So here, this is by the great master. Called Atisha. So it's mind instruction by Atisha. So it says that so when you are in the assembly of many people, one must always be aware and mindful of one's mouth. So it says we must always check our mouth when we are in assembly of many people, because mouth is through which troubles come. So we must keep a check on our mouth, what we say, what we all that. And it says when you are chipun dona semnata, and when you are alone, in isolation or alone, then it says we must take care of our mind. So even you might be in the most isolated place, but if your mind is not checked, then you will be the same as being everywhere. So there's a saying, that when people go into retreat, normally they are okay, but when they are in retreat, suddenly their mind starts imagining many things. They want to do many things. They will be waiting, when will the retreat get over? I'll cook this, I'll cook that. Then they start seeing things, where I should move my bed, where I should move the altar, where I should do this, that. All these things are happening in your mind. So therefore it says, when you are alone, you must check your mouth. When you are in group or in assembly, you must take care of your mouth. When you are alone, you must take care of your mind. Because it says, it says the mind is the root cause of all problems, non-virtuous. And cause of all problem is the mind. Mind creates all that, and then that gets expressed through the mouth. And then the mouth is through which all that trouble arises. So mind is the cause of all trouble, and mouth is the from where it arises. Because you say things and then that hurts people. You say things that so all that comes around. So if you keep your mouth shut, then no problem. So this is the rule of the British Royal, right? They say never speak a word. No matter what, they just stay quiet, and that is the way to stay away from trouble. Right? So even in worldly terms, they believe this. So in Dharma, of course, so it says that way. Therefore, he says, always be mindful, always guard these two carefully. Always be mindful of this. Don't go around just blabbing words around, and don't go around, and then don't think, all kind of things. You must always be mindful, and take care of these two. Then it says, Khunde Thamje Rangisem. And it says all, whether it is liberation or whether it is samsara, everything is the mind. It says, Khunde Thamje Rangisem. It is one's own mind, which creates all this, whether it's liberation or whether it's samsara, suffering, it is the mind. There's not even a particle that is from another source. So everything is this, everything is one's own mind. There's no other source through which these arise. It says all, whether it is happiness, whether it is suffering, whether it is good, whether it is bad, whether it is superior, whether it is inferior, so all that kind of experiences are all one's mind. It is the perception of the mind. It is the creation, the perception of the mind. So therefore, if one's mind is pure, then that is the Buddha. There is no Buddha somewhere else. If one's mind is pure, then that is Buddha. There is no Buddha beyond that. And with that kind of a mind, then wherever you are, that is the pure land. You don't have to search for any pure land anywhere. Wherever you are, that is the pure land. If your mind is pure. And whatever you do, that is the Dhammata. Whatever you do, then that is the most profound action, Dhammata. And and then with that kind of a mind, then whatever you perceive, then that becomes the pure perception. That becomes the that is the it is the pure perception. Is the Rangi Semni. So that is why practice of the pure perception and these things are so important. I feel that because if we are able to practice pure perception, then what happens is you are able to get closer to the reality of the ultimate state or the nature of things, which is again your own nature. When we are able to recognize and realize our nature, our very nature, then that is liberation, as we see here. So that is the pure. That is pure. That is not corrupted. It can never be corrupted. But so how do we do that? Is by practice of pure perception, because what it perceives outside there. So if we see things negatively, that is not your nature. So that is an illusion. But if you see things and then learn to perceive things in a positive way, then that is the closer to your nature. That is the so therefore and then so that is why it says here that if one is able to check one's mind, if one's mind is in the state of purity, in that kind, and then in that state, then everything is pure perception. Everything is pure land. Everything is noble act. Everything is Buddha. So, and then in the same way it says Rangi Semni Madana. And on the other hand, if one's mind is not virtuous, not pure or not virtuous, then what happens is Sangje Injang Jun de Tong. Even like I told you in the morning, even if you are in front of the Buddha, you will see faults in the Buddha. So nobody will be perfect for you then. Nobody can help you. Because if somebody trying to help you, you will see the faults in that person. If Buddha comes in front of you, you will not believe in Buddha. So that way no one be able to help you also. So even Buddha also you will not be able to see or realize or recognize Buddha. It says Rangi Semya Madana. You will see faults in the Buddha. And even if it's your own parents also, you will see faults in them, and they will be a source of your anger, it says. So if your mind is not virtuous or pure, or tamed, and then these things can happen, because your parents are very precious to you, because they took care of you when you were born, and they educated you, they fed you, they did all that. So they're very precious. But if one's mind is not tamed, if one's mind is not virtuous, then you will see something that is basically, it means something that is very something that has done a lot for you also. They will become the source. You will start seeing them as your enemy, as your like this, so not realizing how much they have done for you. So it says and then whatever you all that you perceive around you, everything will start becoming like an obstacle to you, becoming the source of your suffering. Everything will become a source of suffering. Everything will become a source of your anger. That way, if your mind is not tamed, then if you have something, you will want to have more. If someone does something, you get irritated. Like there's a saying, the grass is always greener on the other side. So like that. So these things, so like that. So now no matter what, and if someone else is doing well, unnecessarily you will start getting jealous. There's no need, because if someone does well, no matter whether you get jealous or whether you are happy, it's not going to affect you. But then you will start getting jealous, and and by doing that, of course, it's not going to affect that person. But then by doing that, it will only affect you. So when you get jealous with somebody, it's making you unhappy. When you are happy for somebody, it makes you happy. But then it is such that when someone else is doing well, you'll get jealous. And then it is very strange, that you get jealous only with those who's most close to you. Somebody who you don't know does well, you will not be so jealous, because it has nothing to do with you. But somebody who's very close to you, who's near to you, dear to you, if they do well, if you are not careful, you start getting jealous of that person. Why that person? Why not me? I wish I could do better. Like that. So it's very strange. That is how these affective emotions are. They trick us all the time. They think they are doing great service to us, but actually, they are harming us in this way, in a very skillful way. So it says, so you will perceive things. Everything that one perceives will, work negatively. It will work against you. It will become a source of one's suffering. Anger and this. Around and then this desire or greed. So all that will never end. There will never be an end to all that. Wishing this, wishing that. And then those to whom one is close to, then wishing, attachment towards them. Then those, who one doesn't like, then developing anger, hatred towards them. So these kind of negative attitude, there's no end to that. It will keep arising, and then it will absorb you. It says, there's no. And then in that kind of experience, one will, one's life will end. One will, because it's impermanent. We are always going closer and closer to our end. And then in this kind of, unhappiness, unsatisfied, suffering from all these unnecessary things, and then our life will end that way. It says, if one's mind is not virtuous, if it's not, if it's not tamed that way. And no matter who you associate with, you will have differences, you will have problems. And wherever you stay or wherever you reside, there will always be a problem. You will never find peace there. There will always be something that is irritating you or allergic to you. And then no matter how much you have, you will never be satisfied. You will always be wanting more and more. You will never be satisfied. There will never be a sense of contentment. you will always be greedy, wanting more and more, no sense of contentment. Reren zomya, rere. Even if you get one, you will look for another one. As you accomplish that, again look for another one. So that way, there's never. So these are the worldly. I'm talking about the worldly dharma. So rere zom, rere zal. And then this life will be lost in this kind of color, this kind of worldly, perception or worldly play that choose, so you will be so lost in this kind of, unnecessary, the worldly plays, colors that choose and because of all that, even sometimes, because of your good karma, you might arise a thought to practice the genuine dharma. You might arise a wish to be liberated. These things might arise in you because of your good karma. Sometimes it might happen. But again you will say, I'll do today, I'll do later, I'll do tomorrow, I'll do day after, and it will finish. You will never get down to doing it. You will say, I'll do meditation, I'll do tomorrow. I'll find tomorrow maybe is a better time. Today is too late, or it's time for my dinner. Then you will postpone it. Then you might think, I'll do it before sleeping. Then when sleeping time comes, you're too tired. You feel, maybe tomorrow. Today I'm not fresh. I feel tired. Then tomorrow you wake up late. Then you say, no, I'm getting late for my work. I need to. Then I'll say, you'll do in the lunchtime. Then lunchtime you feel too full. And then you do so like this. And then it keeps going. And then it will never happen. It will never come. So that it says. So even this, one noble thought of wanting to do practice, or that also will never happen, because you will be lost in this kind of a thing. And then when sometimes you might arise the genuine wish to renunciate all worldly pleasures or the unnecessary things, and then in such times you might wish, want to do away with everything, and now you think you can give up everything, you don't need anything, I need to practice contentment and all like this. But then as time goes, then it says that again you will start feeling stingy, and start feeling regret for whatever you have done, and that is so all that might happen, and it will happen, it says. So that is why I always say that when you do the Dharma practice, we must be balanced, not do extreme things, because some people come to me saying, they want to go into the mountain, or they want to give up everything, they want to give up their job, they want to give up their home, and then sell everything, and then go into the Himalaya mountain, do some practice like that, and this and that. They say they get so much motivation like this, which is very good. But I tell them, take your time, take some time and to think about it. You can do practice anywhere, as we saw that here. It says, if your mind is pure, if your mind is virtuous, where you are, that is the pure land. You don't need that is the Buddha. You don't need to go somewhere to do anything. So that way, take your time. Then of course, if you really are confident and have really made your mind, then fine. But then till then, don't just rush into decisions like that. So otherwise, this can happen. That if our mind is so our mind is so engrossed in this the worldly play of or this, that, I want to do this, I want to do that, I want to achieve this, I want to achieve that, I want to all this, then this is it's like thought, imagination, it is not the reality, it is playing with yourself. So with that, then you get carried away, and when you get carried away, then at one moment you might feel like you want to leave everything, and disappear into the mountain. Another minute you will be regretting about that, and then that's not it shouldn't be that way. So here it says, so much and then same way it says, when you develop great devotion to one's guru, then namatele jemida, you will feel like there's nobody who's greater than your guru. You can even give up everything, your own life for this guru. You can do anything like this. You will have that kind of a thing. But as time passes, you start seeing faults in your guru. You start seeing, he's not that good. And then nowadays social media is there, so then you try to post as much as possible the faults of the guru, and try to make sure everybody knows these faults, and then it's happening, so like that, so it is very clearly, many hundreds of years back it's said here, that these things happen, so here, if we are not careful, if we don't tame our mind, then these things happen. So here it says, there are prayers, by great masters saying, may I never be born so close to my guru as his attendant, because they say, as far as you are, you receive the teachings, you practice, and not get so close so that this doesn't happen to you, that not because of the faults of the guru, but because of your corrupted mind, you start seeing faults in others, so if you stay away, there's less chances of you seeing, such faults, so you do whatever you can, and then the most precious thing that you can serve your guru is by practicing what your guru teaches, so that is what the guru wants, that is what, if you do, is the most precious thing for the guru also, as his disciple, and so that is what he wishes you to do, so yeah. Anyway, so here it says Namati regime, and then as time goes, then you will start seeing faults and all that, and which is because of your corrupted mind, not because of the guru, so Gejur Chikton Nipa, and then it says when one develops some kind of Tepa is like genuine faith or genuine, that is the great belief, and that is Tepa. So when that happens, then one might feel like doing a lot of virtuous things, like Gejurchi, and not only one, but one after another, feel like doing many, one after another like that. But as time goes, then one will become lazy, and then one doesn't want to do anything and like that, so it shouldn't be like that, basically, it should be everything should be balanced and done mindfully, and not just by emotions, one shouldn't get carried away by emotions. And one gets carried away with emotions when one is not able to check one's emotion. And the emotion is just a play of the mind. So it says, one should be careful of that. One should always be mindful and check that. And then Tundo Sarba Nyebice, Rang the Luz. And then it says, as a Dharma practitioner, or then when you meet your new friends, Dharma friends, and others, you feel so happy and so close to each other, and you feel like you can do anything for them, and always caring for their well-being, and that you will be overly doing these things. And as time goes, then you can't bear each other. When you see each other, also you get upset. And then they're sitting in the hall of teaching. Then when your friend next to you, he plays with mobile phone, you will start getting upset. And you're getting disturbed. And then you get upset like this. And so like these things, not careful, then even that one who you thought is the greatest for you, at one point suddenly becomes your most allergic person, so like that. And then these are many experiences, if you are not careful, we hear of, I hear so many times, when big groups come, for like pilgrimage and all like this, when they first come, they're very friendly and share everything with each other, and that by the time the whole trip is getting to an end, each one cannot stand each other, and then the guide has a very difficult time, the one who's taking them around have to start dealing with each and every one, and if not very skillful, it's very difficult, so they keep saying, please don't send them as a guide of a big group, so it's like that, so this happens, if one is not able to check one's mind. So here it says, so that is why checking the mind is very important. So here, of course, it goes more deeper than that. It's talking about the Dharma friends, So Dharma friends is very precious. So one must always be able to balance and then, respect. Don't overly react to things. Ransem called to Bana, then it says, so it says, so all these things, all these things arises, the root cause of all this is Rangsem Tsuma Simbile. It is because one is not able to contain one's mind. It is because one is not able to check one's mind, because the mind is not, one is not able to contain one's mind. Then the wild mind creates all these problems. It says, so it boils down to the mind not being able to, subdue the mind. So it says, if one is able to, handle the mind, or if one is able to work with the mind, then when it says one doesn't have to look for a place of isolation. It says wherever you are, that is the if your mind is contained, and then that is isolation. You don't have to look for some other isolation, or some solitude. You don't have to look for other solitude. If you don't have much, if you don't have all these wild thoughts, all these confusions, then that is the highest of all isolation. It says, that is the solitude. That is the highest of solitude. So you don't have to look around for any other solitude like Himalayan mountains and all that. So of course we do all that because that is again, it is a way. We go into mountains practicing and all that, but they're not necessary. As we know, as lay people, we don't have all that opportunity, so not necessary. So if one's mind is contained, then that is the highest form of solitude. It says, it says one doesn't have to look for gurus outside all the time. It says, Semni Lama, your mind itself, this very contained, the virtuous mind itself is the guru. It says, Semni Nama Imbar Ni, the mind itself, the very nature of the mind itself is the guru. So it is the Buddha, so that is the guru. And then one doesn't have to worry whether one is able to, whether one is being able to do virtuous action or not, whether one is able to do such action or not. One doesn't have to worry, because it says, if one is able to practice mindfulness, if one is able to practice awareness, like this, always aware and mindful of one's mind, then that itself is the highest form of accumulation of merit. That itself is the highest form of practice. So one doesn't have to worry about whether one is doing any accumulation of merit, whether one is doing any practice or not. One doesn't have to worry. That itself is the highest form of practice. And that way then one doesn't have to so that way one doesn't have to try and purposely abandon. Yengwa means abandon. What is the opposite of awareness and mindfulness? Wild mind. So your mind, getting distracted and not able to control. So one and thoughts, all these kind of thoughts. So one doesn't have to get too worried about that. It says, you don't have to worry whether you are able to do that or not too much if you are able to maintain awareness and mindfulness. For example, you don't, basically what it means is you don't have to block thoughts like we did yesterday during meditation. We don't have to block thoughts. As long as you are aware of it, that itself is the meditation. Being aware of it. If you have to block thought, that is another thought. So you cannot block that way. So like same thing. So like like for example, something that irritates you. So it says, it means you don't have to look around for places to find something that doesn't irritate you. Because that is very difficult. So it says rather than that, you look at the very, learn to be aware of it without getting drowned into that. Like stress. You don't have to fight stress. You don't have to get scared and try to fight stress. If you learn to observe stress, then the stress itself, the nature is empty. So that is what it means. So whatever it is, if you just learn to observe, if you learn to just rest in that very nature as it is, you don't have to run away from anything. That itself becomes the source of liberation. So everything is like that. So that is the mindfulness and awareness. So as long as you have awareness and mindfulness, then that itself is self-liberation. You don't have to create anything else. You don't have to worry about anything else. So when you don't have awareness, when you don't have mindfulness, then you get drowned into that. The emotion, of attachment, emotion of jealousy, emotion of all that. When you are aware and remain in the very, in the very essence of that, when you remain with awareness and mindfulness, then you are not drowned into that. So you don't get affected by that. So that is how, so one practices or tackles these things. So here it says that, that Ransam Keji Nindila, Yingwache the Bangmigu, Tenshit and so you don't have to abandon thoughts, purposely. If one is able to maintain awareness and mindfulness, then that itself is the self-liberation. So one doesn't have to purposely try and avoid all thoughts, because it's impossible to avoid. So nyamong chedo tamigu, one doesn't have to be scared of the afflictive emotions. One doesn't have to be scared of the arising afflictive emotions, because if one is able to rest in that very nature, then that itself is the self-liberation. That itself is the the realization of the emptiness. Rangosina Ishin. So that is the wisdom. So that itself is the arising of the wisdom. And so you don't have to you don't have to worry and then giving up your anger and jealousy and that by worrying and trying to get paranoid by it. So basically no need to get paranoid by all that. If you just learn to rest in that in its very nature, that itself is wisdom. That itself is emptiness. So that is what it means. When not realized is the afflictive emotions, when realized is the emptiness, the wisdom. So it is like the two sides of the same coin. And then ransom nam to matulna ramos na ransom kiji nid de khonde jen to madumbe ta to sem na sharatsal. So it says ransom kiji nid de. So your mind, this very this very moment of one's mind konde rangosina ishin rangsim keji nindile konde. So this very moment, the mind state of the mind itself is the is either the liberation or the samsara. So which means if you don't know how to take care of this mind, if you don't know how to work with this mind, then that is samsara. Whereas if you know how to work with this mind, if you know how to take care of this mind, then that is liberation. There's no liberation somewhere else. There's no samsara somewhere else. It is this mind itself. So therefore, always be aware, always be mindful of the state of your mind. Always take care of that. Always be mindful. Always look within. That is why Buddhists. As a Buddhist, we say Nangpa, one who looks within, one who looks inside of oneself, one who takes care of one's own mind, rather than looking for answers outside. So that is Buddhist. So this practice, if you do this practice, then you are a Buddhist. You call yourself Buddhist but don't do this, then it is just a namesake. You are not a Buddhist. But if you do this, even if you are not known as a Buddhist, you are a Buddhist. So Buddhist means this. One who does this. Then it says Ransem nam to matulna chirul dal sepame. So it says if one is not able to subdue the mind inwardly, then to be able to subdue enemies externally is impossible. The external enemies will multiply. If one is not able to subdue the mind inside, which creates the problem, the afflictive emotions, which are the main enemy, which has been harming you for so long. So if you are not able to check that, then if you go under their influence, then external enemies will never end, because it is the mind that perceives enemies or such so-called enemies. So therefore, so if one is able to contain and destroy this for example, the anger within oneself, like here the example anger, then it says sating dawa thamje to, then there's no more enemy externally. When there's no more to get angry, because there's no anger in you, then there's no one to be angry about, so that way one works inward, rather than outward. So senda chokshi majina, and if one is not able to develop a genuine sense of contentment and what is good and what is one virtuous mind, if one is not able to develop a genuine virtuous mind, dugu zomya tamboda, then it says a contentment and a virtuous mind, then no matter how much you have, you're still a beggar or a pauper. It says you're still beggar, a pauper, you don't have anything. Even if you have the wealth of the entire world, still if you think it is not enough, then you are a beggar. You don't have anything. Whereas if you have just enough to live, but you think you're very lucky to have that much and you are content with that, then you are a rich person. Because you have what you want. So like that. So it says at the end of the day, it is the mind. Like for example, Milarepa. Milarepa didn't have anything. So he had just a broken how do you say, vase or a bowl to make his nettle soup. That's it. He didn't have anything besides that. And then but he was content. He was the most rich person. With that. So once there was a thief, who came into his cave to steal, and then started looking for things to steal, but there's nothing to steal, because he didn't have anything for the thief to steal. And Milarepa was sitting in one corner meditating, and it was a little bit dark, I think, so he didn't see me directly. And Milarepa started laughing, so and then I guess he saw him, and then then Milarepa said, what can you find? There's nothing to steal. Even the spirits will not find anything. What would you find to steal in here? There's nothing to steal. You will not find anything. And then later this person became his student, and then attained realization. So that so if you are a content person, even if you don't have much, you are a rich person. If you have so many, but if you are not content, you are the poorest person. So that way it says. Now the kondo to banasa, like normally I find that when I go to hospitals in India, the normal government hospitals, they are just like usual normal hospitals. But when you go to a private, these expensive hospitals, then you find, cabins where it says, where they need psychologists, right, who deal with the mind, right, the people, that department, and then all that, so it shows, you have wealth yet you are unhappy. Why? Because of this. So if you're not able to be content, then no matter how much you have, you're not happy. Then that you cannot sleep. Then you need the sleeping pills. You need all that things. Because you're not happy with what you have. And that. Whereas the so satin dawa thamjine tawdo semla sharatsal konde jindu mandubi dugu zomya tamboda shenlo chokshe jinjimi as sanzing meja tawdo chok. So it says shenlo chokshe, the one who has contentment and all that, then that person is always rich, always happy. Jigde shawar lekpa thang chudan gewa dubitse semla gawa chimpeche chewai pacha te thorichi. So it says as long as it is worldly action, then even if it is a meritorious action, then it is a action that accumulates good merit. As long as it is worldly, like say act of generosity, act of like all this, and then it says if that is the action of good, meritorious act. So with that one accumulates good merit, it says, and with that good merit, one benefits by being born in a higher realm, a higher being, or with with wealth, with good health, with good appearance, etc. So that kind of things it says, going on. But it says pacha but it says even that is impermanence. Even if you are born as the most rich person, that impermanence. When you die, you cannot take anything. Even if you are born as the most, beautiful person, and that is just appearance. That is impermanence. After some time, it will change. Even if you are born in the God's realm, after your lifespan, then it will finish. You will be born in another realm again. And so like that it says, even as long as it is a worldly kind of benefit, then there's an end to it. It is impermanent itself. But it says gawi moate bana. But instead, when you do something virtuous, and that gives you genuine happiness or joy, if you learn to look at the very nature of the joy itself, then we will realize, or we will experience the wisdom of the emptiness. And then that, if we learn to meditate on this wisdom of emptiness, then through that one can attain liberation. One can attain realization, because that is the through wisdom of emptiness one attains liberation. So, and now then it says again on the other side, it says and then if one performs lots of non-virtuous action and like this, then what happens is one creates negative karma. And so with negative karma, then one experiences birth in the lower realms, sickness, and bad, so all sufferings basically, worldly sufferings. So it says one experiences that through negative karma, accumulation of negative karma. But it says then it says, now that very suffering that one that is brought about, or like let's say, as I said, when anger arises or jealousy arises or these kind of things which create the negative karma. So when that arises, if you learn to look at the very nature of that itself, then that is the again practice of the emptiness, the nature of emptiness. And if you can rest in that, and if you can practice in that, then that is the practice of the wisdom of emptiness, and through which one can attain liberation, it says. So whether it is good or bad, if you learn to practice in resting in the very nature of emptiness, then that is the genuine path to liberation. So therefore, in the genuine path to liberation, one can practice in all, it says. So whether good, bad, all this is a mental perception. So and ultimately there's no thing as good and bad. It is empty of such a thing. So therefore it is beyond good and bad. So if we want to attain realization, then we need to practice. We need to do such practice. Understanding of the wisdom of emptiness. So like in Mahamudra meditation, then it is all about that. So here now so it says when that happens, when one experiences the the empty nature of whatever emotions, then that is the wisdom of emptiness. There's no other wisdom besides that. That is the wisdom of emptiness. That is the realization. Rangsem did middle way, and Rangsem did middle way tato Rangsem sumarji. So it says now, so that way, then one must always, one must always be mindful and always be aware of this and always practice that way. And never be separated from this kind of practice. And always, always guard your mind. Always guard your mind with these advices, these practices, these methods. And if one does that, then it says the one who protects the mind, protects one's mind, then for that person, then all dharma is, all dharma is encompassed in that. There's no other dharma besides that. So that is the practice of the dharma. That is the dharma. So and then sungsul jasi shivale. So therefore this the practice of the protecting the mind, sungsul, is put forth by the great master, So here it says so such practice of the protecting the mind or taking care of the mind, and then it says like the great master Jasi Shivala Shantideva has said that Samsung Dapa Namlani. So those who wish to do that, Tembatani Shijin. So the practice of the awareness and mindfulness is the most supreme. Tembatani Shijin da Tamje Bebe Sungshije. So one must always do whatever one does with mindfulness and awareness. So as long as you do things with mindfulness and awareness, then that is the most profound practice. So one must always do that, and then so that is the main practice. So here, this is very profound, helpful. So I always try to keep these in mind. Of course, we are all not perfect, so we get carried away sometimes. But when we get carried away, that is why these instructions are there. So when we get carried away, then it reminds us and it brings us back to again mindfulness and awareness. So so again and again, one time not successful, second time not successful, third time, fourth time, you will become better and better. So like that. So that is very important. Oh, perfect timing. So. Yeah, so with that, then we end the teaching here today, and with that, let us do the dedication. So here, today's dedication. Let us do the. So let's do the. I will do the blessing after the practice, after this. Let us do the Mahamudra, the aspiration prayer. It's page number 22. Page number 22. Okay, Mahamudra aspiration prayer. 22. 22. 22. Okay. Okay. Namo Guru Lama Namdan Yedam Jinkuru La Choju Duzun Jawa Sedan Ji Dala Zergon Nagi Mana Nan Jijin Rubi Dunjuru Shinla Dadan Daye Semjin Tamji Ji Samjur Namda Kanri Leji Nyome gezo juju nan jawa guje jansur juju jese deman thoba dese do jedan jewa sera kondo yan dedan dongan jaya me raje dege jansu bala jubarajo tanjur jodo deze shera de shenye zande dambe jodhone zojin rola parje manje bar tera gondo namje jebar rongre debe meshe tende ro menga sambe de zombona jo amje nelo jeje sa Chera sumje nawa je barajo Taje thandalan deni je dan dogur thara sonye lam chonge Seje thandalan deni rindame Jome be chedan je barajo Janje semnye saldon sonjo la Janje chajen dorje nanjur haje Janja lombur Chube Chemana, Yangdi Chira, Chugu Munjura, Shila Jodo, Cheba Dave, Den De Ramaye, Chungwa Gombe, Gomden Gola, Tajon Chube, Cho Dagum Chube, Den Dan Den Barajo, Gamje, Semje Namchul, Te Semne Seme, Semje Mo, Tongje Manga, Awa De Le Baradane, Jeza Chubarajo, Yamanyo Rana Yodo, Mare Wange, Rare Dado, Ninze Wange, Sebe Londo, Cha Mare Chube, Zedra Chubarajo, Yaba Maye, Jave Jama, Zeme Bamaye, Konde Gunje, Ganda Maye, Sunjo Me, Ram, Tada Semje, Chunye Dombarajo, Dingin Sheba, Kange Tumba, Mende Me Sheja, Kange Gaba, Lolen De Ben, Chunye Duma, Yanda Kunje, Tane Gimbarajo, Dini Mado, Korve Jansor, Koran Dini Dona, Sanje Shena, Tamje Deyen, Deme Kaya, Me, Chuni Kunje, Tane Rebarajo, Naya Semla, Doya Semye, De Doja Semla, Chuya Range Sem, Jejan Semla, Gajan Semye, Ben Rondo Tamje, Semla Chubarajo, Ije Zove, Gomje Male, Jen Tamara Dunze, Lunge Maju, Maju Nyuma, Ramba Joshi, Be Sem Dunyamnen, Keshe Jongwarajo, Chara Dombe Bala Ransara Shi Yome Semji Chuangange Shimo Nyobe Chema Tanda Ve Shine Janso Meya Dembarajo Parme Semla Yang Tebe Te Tome Bene Chijin Hagera Yemen Tela Te Sanche Bani Chume Rangwa Rangi Shebarajo Debe Yume Semso Ton Semla Debe Seme Ngo Ton Nila Debe Ninze Ransarajo So Semje Nilo Dombarajo Ije Jawa Dene Chaja Che Dada Jawa Oman Chenpo Dene Gonde Zochen Shejan Sha Che She Gonde Dobe Den Dosho Shenpa Me Ben De Chen Jun Che Me Tenze Me Be Pesa Je Yo Cha Lo Ben De Be Me Do Ben Jin Ro So Me Nyam Nyam Jun Che Me Morajo Sanje Nyam Jen Zemba Rang Saran Cho Ngen Do Cho Ba Rang Shen Yin So Ta Tama She Ba Bang Lang Chan Do Me Chu Zhe Chu Nyen Den Ba Do Ba Rajo Robe Rang Shen Da Do Sanje Jang Ma Do Wang Ge Ta Me Kor Wa La Chan Longa Monta Me Be Sem Jen La Zeme Ninje Jula Je Warajo Zeme Ninje Zaya Manga Be Zedu Mo Tongden Jen Bara Shala Songjo Kosa Trabe Lam Chonde Dame Ninten Gondo Gombarajo Gondo Lejon Jendang She Da Zem Jen She Sanje Shin Ran Jang Sanje Chunan Zhebe Menlan zon zon me shang san tar xin san je shao ju jawa se je tu je na nam gar ge wa chen yu be du de dra da da zem je nam je je ma na nam da je yen ru je. We continue, okay? Gewan de nyurdo da cha ja chembo rubjurane droa chi ja malba te sala gambar jo sonam de tamje zibani thomne nyebe danam pamje jega naje bala chubai Sibe Sole Rowan Dora Show Jamba Bal Chindra Chimba Kundu Zambo Teya Tejin Tenda Gunji Jesu Dalhoj Gewan Da Tamje Rabdo Mo Gewan Di Cheogun Sunam Yeshe Tsozon Sunam Yeshe Lechung Tamba Guni Tobara Sho Sanji Kusum Nibi Shinab Chuni Minjura Dembe Shinab Gendun Minche Dumbe Shinab Chidra Hoa Manam Dubara Sho Om Bendra Sado Samaya Manu Palaya Bendra Sado Dinomba Dita Didro Membawa Sudo Kayo Membawa Subu Chayo Membawa Anurado Membawa Sarva Siddhi Menjayana Sarva Karma Sudzame Tirdam Shiri Ya Kuru Hum Haha Haha Ho Bhagavan Sarva Tadha Gada Benzaram Amunza Benzaram Bhav Mahasamaya Sadhu